Hello, my name is Aubrey Depa, and I'm going to be sharing with you today on the didactic topic, empowering educational staff and non-responsive scenarios. This is session 2 in the ECHO series for school and district leaders, focused on function-based thinking and function-based supports. Again, my name is Aubrey Depa. I'm the project coordinator for the Behavior Alliance of South Carolina. And prior to this, I was a elementary classroom teacher, as well as a PBIS coach, positive behavior interventions and supports coach, specializing in classroom implementation projects. Today, the objectives for our session together is to identify and understand driving forces behind potential challenges with implementing function-based supports, describe strategies for preparing for and responding to challenges you may face, and then applying what I call active stance strategies and session content to case studies if you are to engage with a case study following this didactic topic. Our agenda for today, I'll take some time to do a brief review of behavior and function-based thinking. We'll take some time to identify what challenges you may face with implementing something new, looking at how we can overcome the challenges and those active stance strategies I mentioned in our objectives, and then an opportunity to do a commitment to action. So to get us started, we'll look at a review. So first off, what is behavior? Behavior is an action that a person does that can be observed, measured, and repeated, keeping in mind that behavior is objective, not subjective. And we know that behavior is influenced by multiple factors. Looking at behavior in a student, keeping in mind the biological, familial, cultural, and school factors that are at play when looking at behavior and how it's influenced. We know that behavior is it's occurring for a reason. There's a motivation driving that behavior. It's not sporadic. And behaviors are learned and they continue because they serve a purpose or function, such as to access or avoid. Because behavior occurs for a reason, that's how we get that function and function of behavior. So here you see on the chart, looking at the function, whether it be attention, tangibles, activities, or sensory, are they trying to access something or avoid something? And so function-based thinking, the process of going through function-based thinking to develop function-based supports, it's a quick, systematic way of thinking that informs the selection of effective function-based supports. It's used for preliminary, proactive, and user-friendly explanation of students' minor behavior, such as off-task, talking in class, that sort of thing. Keeping in mind this is for predominantly minor behaviors. And these supports are developed by teacher and classroom staff, input from the families and from the individual student. The function-based thinking process overview. So if you were to use the user guide that we've shared, the first step is that gathering information part, when you really look at the behavior, when it's happening, why it's happening, really looking at the family perspective, coming up with a goal for the student in order to identify a replacement behavior. And part 2 is developing those function-based supports. What are the supports that are going to be put in place in order to see a contextually appropriate behavior? What are the things that are needed, the resources that are needed to have that happen? And then once that function-based support has started, that step 3 is measuring success of the plan, coming up with a SMART goal, tracking that to make sure it's done with fidelity and that it is, creating the positive change that we want to see to ensure the student is able to be successful in their environment. So now jumping into the next section of our session together today, identifying challenges. So here I want you to think about the challenges of implementing new things, whether it be a new system, a new tool, a new curriculum, whether you're asking teachers or staff to utilize a new communication platform or a new way of walking through the building or new expectations. What are some of the challenges that you have encountered when implementing new systems, or what are some challenges that you can foresee encountering with a new thing that you're implementing? And this is a great opportunity for response. I'll kind of pause for a moment for you to think about this. Some of the potential responses could be time, money, teachers' overall perception of whatever that implementing new thing is. It can be lack of understanding. It can be just overall, overwhelmed, resistant to change. Being able to find the time, the PD time to do that. So lots of different challenges that can be faced. What I want to look at today is not just the challenges, but the why we face challenges. And so this information I gathered from the PBIS team handbook, which you can see in the upper right-hand corner of the screen. And it's really important to understand why we face challenge so that we can begin to proactively respond to challenges. Anytime that you face a challenge, when you're asking change to happen, there's uncertainty, right? Anytime there's change, there's uncertainty. What's it going to look like? How is this going to work? Where is it going to fit in? How is this going to make my life look different? When you have uncertainty, you get oftentimes that trigger for anxiety because of that unknown. And with that, oftentimes you face avoidance of that uncertainty, because anxiety is not something comfortable that oftentimes people want to sit with, especially in our schools where we're already faced with so many challenges with the things that we think, should be consistent. And so with that avoidance, there's a lack of information, and that lack of understanding that can lead to a negative outlook. And a negative outlook is not going to give us the results we are looking for positive change. With this information, we want to keep in mind that resistance is a natural human response to uncertainty. So as we look at overcoming challenges and the challenges that we shared and that we face, it's important to know that the resistance is natural and we should expect it, and therefore we should prepare for it. So as we talk about overcoming challenges, I want you to think about what we can do when we want to overcome a challenge. I know oftentimes, the locus of control is brought up. What is within your locus of control? What's not within your locus of control? And I think what we need to focus on as we look at overcoming challenges with function-based thinking is not simply what we can control and what we cannot control, but the area inside of here that I haven't seen routinely, but the things that you can influence. And as a school and district leader, this is really where you could have a great amount of impact with function-based thinking and trying to get teachers and staff to implement this thought process. And that's because as a leader, you can control your own thoughts, actions, and decisions, but you also have the ability to influence other folks and other people's actions, choices, and their response to change. And so as we move forward, I'd like you to just take a minute to think about some of the things that we talked about or potential challenges you may face, and then what lives within those two bubbles, those two circles of what you can influence and what you can control, right? Leaving out the things we can't control. We can't control time. We can't control money. We can't control maybe certain aspects of the socioeconomic status of students. But what are the things that we can control and the things that we can influence? Some of the things that I've seen shared are perception of function-based thinking, the ability to listen and be there as a support for teachers. I've seen people share that they can influence their ability to coach and to empower their teachers and build on skills that their teachers already have. And then, of course, things you can control is your own ability to really understand function-based thinking and build your knowledge so that you're able to be a great coach and leader. And so moving forward, I want to talk about overcoming challenges. And as we talk about overcoming challenges, in my experience, I have learned that there are kind of three active stance strategies that are really effective in planning for challenges and responding to challenges, rooted in the idea that we know anytime that you're implementing something new, you're going to get that uncertainty and potentially have that resistance. And so, with each of these three, I want you to think of both your perspective with this as the leader and the coach, but then also what the perspective is with the educator, school based staff, or coachee that you may be working with. And so the first one we look at is knowledge, right? So with knowledge, and I did want to just mention that we do have our Canvas module for Introduction to Function-Based Thinking, where you can continue to grow your knowledge on function-based thinking. We want to keep in mind what are the components of knowledge that already exist, and are they things that are aligned or things that are not aligned to function-based thinking? When I think about the depth of knowledge, how much knowledge do you have, and how much knowledge do your teachers and education, school-based staff, how much do they have? The span of the knowledge, does it go all the way from pre-K or kindergarten students to working with high school seniors? What about the special education population or students that are English language learners? What access to knowledge do you have, or do you provide your teachers and school-based staff with? Are they able to continue to grow their knowledge or freshen up on their knowledge weeks after they've initially seen it? And then, of course, what opportunity for increased support? So for those folks that might need to see it 2 and 3 times or be shown it in a different way, are they able to access that? Is it being provided to them as additional support that they can access? The second active strategy is experience. And with that, I want you to keep in mind that firsthand experience. We do have our user guide for function-based thinking and providing those function-based supports. And so with that, as a leader and a coach, what is your firsthand experience with actually doing that with a student prior to asking teachers or school-based staff to do that with a student? What positives did you encounter? What things were really great and worked well for you? And what were the possible hiccups that you may have had or may have you can foresee someone encountering? What capacity building do you foresee for increased sustainability? Who are the people in your building or that you work with that you can make sure you're transferring knowledge and firsthand experience to, so that when your teachers and school-based staff need help with experience, they can go to, so that you're not, the sole person that has that experience. What opportunities do you and do your teachers have for applying function-based thinking? And then what opportunities for in-practice support do they have if they want to have someone oversee their implementation of the function-based supports or function-based thinking, and so that ongoing support? And then what opportunities do you and your teachers have for feedback to know whether they're doing it correctly, whether they need to kind of realign their thinking a bit or do something a little differently before they replicate that process over and over again? And then finally, the last active stance strategy is perception. So your gut feeling, your mindset, your thoughts on function-based thinking, and its potential for impact. Do you, at your core, really believe that the function of behavior, really looking at the function of behavior, coming up with function-based supports, that function-based thinking, do you believe that it's going to have a positive impact on the student? Do you believe that your teachers are going to be able to do it? And do your teachers believe that of themselves? Is it tool specific? Is it the actual tool of the function-based thinking? Or is it context specific? Meaning, do you believe that you as a person or this specific teacher or this specific kid, it will or will not work for? It will or will not work for the culture, the community, the family that we serve. What is your perception of you or your teachers or school-based staff, their past experiences? Are there certain teachers that immediately you're like, well, they're not going to like it, they're not going to want to do it because of XYZ happened last week or last year? And how is that impacting their ability, to listen to the knowledge that you're sharing with them, and for them to really be able to turn it around with their students? And then lastly, your own awareness of your perception and how that translates to those you're coaching and leading, as well as your teachers and school-based staff's perception, their awareness of their own perception, and how that's being translated to the students and the families they're working with and serving. And so with that, I want to ask you today to take a commitment to action. So thinking about function-based thinking and function-based supports, knowing that undoubtedly when you are implementing change, you will face some uncertainty and that will cause some resistance. What are some active stance strategies or some components that you think work best for you in your setting? What is a commitment to action to proactively prepare for some of that resistance? Is it within that knowledge, gaining your knowledge, gaining your teacher's knowledge? Is it within experience, creating opportunities for you to do it firsthand, for you to find other folks in your building who can be the experts in doing this that your teachers can lean on? Is it ensuring that there are feedback opportunities within that firsthand experience before someone's, evaluated or given corrective feedback that may be more punitive? Or is it more in that perception, being aware of your perception of function-based thinking, or being aware of how that perception may be conveyed to those that you're coaching or leading, and then also that perception of, the student and the families that may be impacted by the function-based supports positively. But of course, thinking of that. So I would like you to go ahead and commit to what it is that you're going to do within these 3 active stance strategies. And I'd like you to write it down. And then I'd also like you to put it somewhere that you'll see it over the course of the next week, whether, you write down a little sticky note and put it on the bottom corner of your laptop, or you write it down and hang it next to your desk, or put it on your lanyard somewhere. And I'd like you just to remind yourself throughout the week of what is that thing that you're committing to do to proactively plan for some resistance you may experience when trying to implement something new, especially when we know that it's going to be something that is going to result in positive change for your students and for your teachers and for your school community. One last thing I want to share with you is a resource to support coaching and facing resistance. Some of the knowledge that I gained in my time is actually from Elena Aguilar. She is a very knowledgeable human being. She's published a couple of different texts. One of them is The Art of Coaching. She also has an Art of Coaching Teens and a couple other books, but The Art of Coaching is phenomenal. I highly recommend it. She has a website called Bright Morning, and you can sign up for a weekly newsletter. There's like a podcast, and there's also a transformational coaching learning map, which is really cool. So if you are interested in, really gaining your knowledge as far as coaching goes and building some of those coaching skills, I definitely recommend you check that out. All right. Well, thank you so much for your time today for session 2 of our Echo for leaders, school and district leaders around function-based thinking. Today, focusing on, when we have resistance and how we can empower our educators moving forward. If you have any questions or want to contact me, my email is adepa@g.clemson.edu, but you also can contact the Behavior Alliance team via email by going to basc@g.clemson.edu. And I thank you for your time today. Have a great day.